It started with a text that I should have ignored. Hey, weird favor, but could I crash with you this weekend? Just Saturday to Sunday. My AC's dead and the repair guy flaked. The sender? Theo, my ex. We hadn't talked much since the breakup, which had been quietly brutal. No big blowout, no public drama. Just too many late nights turning into early arguments. By the end, we both agreed we needed space. Real space. That was 6 months ago. I stared at the message for a solid 2 minutes before typing back. Just the weekend, right? Swear, I'll be invisible. Just need a bed and a break from sweating my ass off. That's how it began. And honestly, the first hour wasn't bad. He showed up Saturday morning, same messy hair and smirk, carrying a duffel bag like this was some casual sleepover. He looked tan, like he'd been spending his newly single days on patios and rooftops, and it pissed me off that he still had that effortless look about him. Hey, he said at the door, almost shy. Hey, I said back. I moved aside. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. The air between us already felt too thick. I gave him the guest room, the one that used to be his before he moved out. That was my first mistake. The second was letting him unpack like he was staying longer than 48 hours. But I didn't say anything. Instead, we kept it light. Ordered lunch. Caught up like exes who thought they could handle being friends. It was even kind of easy. Familiar. Until it wasn't. Around 10 p.m., I was rinsing out glasses in the kitchen when I felt him come up behind me. Not close, just close enough that I could smell the cologne he used to wear when we were still us, that subtle, woodsy scent that used to cling to my sheets. You've still got that thing where you leave the sponge in the sink, he said, nodding toward the foam-tipped evidence of my laziness. You've still got that thing where you comment on everything I do. I shot back, not looking at him. He laughed, low and soft. Guess we haven't changed that much. Some of us have, I muttered, placing the glasses upside down on the rack. I thought that would be the end of it, but then I heard him say, You look good, by the way. I turned, unsure whether to thank him or tell him to shut up. He didn't look away. I hated that my stomach flipped, that my body remembered something my brain was trying so hard to forget. Thanks, I said eventually, wiping my hands on a towel. You too. That should have been it. But instead, he stepped forward, slow, like he was testing something. Or maybe just testing me. I didn't move. That was my third mistake. You really okay with me being here? He asked, voice lower now. Like, really okay? I nodded. It's just a weekend. He held my gaze for a beat too long, and for the first time since he showed up, I wasn't sure who was in control of the situation. We ended up watching a movie on the couch. I kept a cushion between us, he noticed. We didn't speak much, just sat in that weird gray zone between nostalgia and tension. When he finally stood to head to bed, he paused and looked down at me. You ever think maybe we gave up too fast? I stared at the screen, pretending I hadn't heard him. He didn't push, just left the room with a quiet night. I didn't sleep much. That question, did we give up too fast, looped in my mind like a song I couldn't skip. Maybe letting him stay wasn't just a mistake. Maybe it was the start of something I wasn't ready to feel again. The next morning, I found Theo standing in my kitchen, shirtless, drinking coffee like he never left. He was always a morning person, something I'd half loved, half resented. That annoying chipper energy before I'd even had caffeine. And there it was again, like no time had passed. Still use oat milk, he said, lifting his mug with a little grin. Consistency. I respect it. I nodded, still trying to shake the sleep from my brain. Still steal people's groceries, huh? He laughed. Consider it payment for the free bed. I poured myself a cup and leaned against the counter, watching him move around like this was his place. Like the 6 months apart hadn't happened. Like he didn't leave with boxes and silence and that stupid text 2 days later that just said, take care of yourself. He turned and leaned on the opposite counter. mug in hand. "You sleep okay?" I shrugged. "Sure." He raised an eyebrow. "Liar." "Did you sleep okay?" He tilted his head. "Eventually." The unspoken words hung there between us. Like always, it was part of why we didn't work. We were great at everything except actually talking. I cleared my throat and gestured toward the living room. "You still running that freelance gig?" "Nah," he said, stepping in after me. "Took a full-time job last month. Tech startup. It's a lot, but the paycheck's better." He didn't say it, but I knew what he meant. More stability, more control, all the stuff he used to hate. I didn't know whether to be proud or annoyed that he made those changes after we broke up. "You always wanted something steadier," I said, more to myself than to him. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, just took a little longer to figure out how to get there." The conversation should have moved on, but we stood there in that weird pause again, like we were both waiting for the other to say something that mattered. Instead, I grabbed the remote and flipped on the TV. By early afternoon, we were back in sync, cooking lunch together, bickering about which brand of hot sauce was better, laughing like old times. It was dangerous. The comfort, the ease, the way our shoulders brushed when we both reached for the same pot. After we ate, he took a shower. I sat on the edge of the couch, telling myself I wasn't listening to the sound of water hitting tile, that I didn't picture him in there, soaked and relaxed, like he used to be on lazy Sunday mornings when I'd sneak in behind him. The worst part? I wanted to forget, but my body wouldn't let me. When he came back out, towel around his waist, hair damp, he caught me looking. He didn't say anything, just held my gaze, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Then he turned and headed for the guest room. I exhaled, hard. I knew I was playing with fire. Letting him stay. Letting the lines blur again. That night, we drank. Not a lot, just a few beers, sitting on the balcony, the kind of low-key quiet that used to be our thing. The city below us was humming, lights flickering, a warm breeze threading through the air. "You remember that weekend in Palm Springs?" he asked suddenly. I smiled. "You mean the one where you almost got heat stroke trying to prove you could? Tough out? 112 degrees?" He chuckled. "I was trying to impress you. You impressed me by nearly passing out on a cactus." He turned to look at me, serious now. "You ever miss it?" I didn't answer right away. "Sometimes," I said finally. He nodded. "Me too." A beat. "Maybe we didn't try hard enough," he added. Quiet, almost guilty. I looked at him, really looked. And for a moment, I didn't see the version of him I'd spent months trying to get over. I saw the version I'd fallen for, the version who used to wake me up with forehead kisses and burned pancakes, the version who held me the night I got laid off and let me fall apart without saying a word. But that version came with the other one. The version who shut down when things got hard, who left arguments halfway through, who walked out without a real goodbye. "I don't know," I said. "Sometimes I think we were just two people who didn't know how to fight the right way." Theo didn't respond. He just leaned back in his chair, eyes on the skyline, beer bottle resting on his knee. "You still wear that hoodie I left?" he asked after a long pause. I didn't mean to hesitate. But I did. Too long. He smirked. "You do." I rolled my eyes, but I didn't deny it. The night stretched on. We talked about everything except what really mattered, until he said, "I should probably sleep soon." I nodded. "Yeah, me too." But neither of us moved. Eventually he stood, and I did too, walking him to the guest room out of habit. He paused at the door, and then he looked at me and said, "You ever wonder what it'd feel like if we didn't mess it up?" And before I could answer, he leaned in. He kissed me, just once, soft, brief. But it was enough to make my heart stutter, enough to make every wall I'd built start to crack. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he went inside and closed the door. I stood there for a long time, staring at the wood grain. I had made a mistake, a big one. Letting him stay was never just about a place to sleep. And now I wasn't sure if I'd wake up wishing he never came, or wishing he'd never leave again. I didn't sleep. I laid there with my eyes open, watching shadows crawl across the ceiling as the city lights flickered outside. Every part of me buzzed with the feel of that kiss. Soft, short, and yet it had detonated something deep in my chest I'd worked too damn hard to bury. At some point past 3 a.m., I gave up on pretending to rest. I got up, padded into the kitchen, and grabbed a glass of water. The apartment was still. No sound from the guest room. But then I heard it. The faint creak of the door. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. I felt Theo step into the kitchen, his presence sliding into the room like it never left. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. "You?" "Nope." I turned to face him. He was wearing a t-shirt and flannel pajama pants. Barefoot. He looked like he belonged here again. That scared the shit out of me. He glanced at the counter, then back at me. "I shouldn't have kissed you." "You already said sorry," I replied, my voice low. He nodded. "I know. I meant it." My heart thudded. I tried not to let it show. "I don't get it," I said. "You're the one who left, remember?" "That's not fair," he said, eyes narrowing slightly. We both walked away. "Yeah," I said. "But you were halfway out the door, long before I was." He looked like I slapped him, but he didn't deny it. "I didn't know how to fix it," he said finally. "I thought space would help. That maybe we'd figure it out on our own." I laughed, dry and tired. "Did you? Or did you just want out?" Silence. "And then, both." I nodded slowly. At least he was honest. Theo stepped closer, leaning against the other end of the counter, keeping just enough distance between us. "I'm not here to mess with your head," he said. "I'm really not. I just didn't know staying here would feel like this." "Like what?" He hesitated. "Like I missed something I shouldn't have let go." I swallowed. Hard. The air felt heavy between us again, thick with memories, tension, old habits we hadn't unlearned. "You don't get to do this," I said, more to steady myself than to accuse him. "You don't get to come back into my apartment, sleep in my sheets, kiss me, and then start rewriting the past." "I'm not," he said quickly. "I know what we were. I know why it ended." "Then what do you want, Theo?" That question hung there. Heavy. Real. He looked down at the floor, then back at me. "I want to try again," he said quietly. "I don't know what that looks like, or if it's even possible, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't thinking about it." I stared at him. I wanted to scream. Or kiss him. Or run. But I did none of those things. Instead, I poured the water down the sink and set the glass aside. "You should go back to bed," I said. He didn't move. I met his eyes again. "Please." He looked like he wanted to argue. But he didn't. He just nodded. "Okay," he said, voice rough. "Good night." And he turned and walked away. I stayed in the kitchen for a long time after that, hands braced on the counter, heart pounding. Because the worst part wasn't that he wanted to try again. It was that part of me wanted it too. And that was the real mistake. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I made eggs, toast, coffee, set 2 mugs on the counter out of habit. Stupid habit. Theo walked in around 9, rubbing his eyes, hair messy from sleep. He paused when he saw the second mug, then gave me a look. Soft, tired, a little grateful. I avoided it. "Morning," he said. "Hey." He sat at the counter, and for a few minutes, the clink of forks and the hiss of the toaster filled the room. It felt weirdly domestic, like we'd slipped back into some old rhythm without permission. "I can leave after lunch, if that makes things easier," he said, breaking the quiet. I looked up. "I thought you said Monday." I did, he said, eyes on his plate. But I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I hated how considerate he was being. Like he was trying to be the version of himself I always wished would show up. You're not making me uncomfortable, I said, then caught myself. Okay, maybe a little, but I'll live. He smiled faintly. We ate in silence, but it wasn't as heavy as last night. Maybe because everything had already been said. Maybe because we were both trying not to say more. Around noon, we ended up on the couch watching soccer. A rerun. Neither of us cared who won. He leaned back, ankle resting on his knee, absently scrolling through his phone. I caught myself looking at him. Really looking. The way his jaw tightened when he read something. How he still squinted at the screen like he hadn't updated his glasses prescription in years. Still, terrible posture, I muttered. He smirked. Still pretending you know better. I rolled my eyes, but there was a warmth creeping in again. Familiar. Unsettling. Then, during halftime, he asked, "Do you remember that weekend in Santa Cruz?" I did. We'd gone in the fall, rented a little Airbnb by the boardwalk. It rained the whole time, but we barely left the bed. I remembered cheap wine, soaked sneakers, and the way his laugh echoed off the wooden ceiling beams. Yeah, I said. I remember. That was a good one, he said. You looked really happy. You were really trying. He looked at me then. I know, I didn't always, but I did then. There it was again. That pause. That moment, right before a line gets crossed, I stood up. I'm going to grab something from the bedroom. I didn't need anything, I just needed space. When I came back, he was on his phone again. Quieter. The energy between us had shifted. Less flirtation, more ache. I can tell you're fighting it, he said suddenly, not looking up. Fighting what? He looked up then. Right at me. This. Us. The part of you that wants it again. I laughed once, dry and hollow. And you're not? He shrugged. I stopped pretending around the time you opened the door yesterday. His honesty made my stomach twist. I spent months trying to get over you, I said. You don't get to just walk in here and undo that. I'm not trying to undo it, he said. I'm trying to figure out if it still means something, if it's still worth something. I sat down across from him, not trusting myself to get too close. You hurt me, Theo, I said, quieter now. Not in some dramatic throw-a-glass kind of way, but in the way that made me stop believing we could fix anything. He looked like he was holding something back. Then he said, I know, and I think about that a lot. There was a beat of silence. I miss you, he added. I didn't answer, because I missed him too, and I hated it. I didn't say it back. I didn't tell him I missed him, even though the words were lodged right at the edge of my throat. Instead, I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and pretended I needed more coffee at 3 in the afternoon. He didn't follow. The next few hours passed in a weird, quiet detente. He packed his things early, even though it was still Sunday, said he didn't want to overstay, said he needed to be up early Monday anyway. Said a lot of things I didn't push back on. By early evening, he was at the door with his duffel again. We stood there, neither of us quite knowing how to do goodbyes anymore. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally said, "Thanks for letting me stay." I gave a small nod. Yeah, I meant everything I said, he added. Last night, today. I didn't just say it because of the history, or the kiss, or whatever that tension is. I looked up at him, jaw tight. Then what was it? I asked. He exhaled. It's the way you still make me feel like I can breathe. Like there's space to be the version of me I always wanted to be, with you. I hated that it sounded sincere. I hated how much it cracked through my defenses. You were the one who couldn't handle that version when you had it, I said. I know. He didn't try to argue or apologize again. Just stood there like he wanted to say more but didn't think he had the right. And that's when I said the thing I didn't plan to say. Part of me still wants you. His eyes lifted. Fast. Shock. maybe, or hope. But I kept going. But a bigger part of me is scared of what happens when you leave again. Theo took a slow step forward, careful, like he was walking on ice. I'm not saying we pick up where we left off, he said. I'm saying maybe we don't write this off yet. I looked at him, and then I stepped back. You should go, I said. His face didn't change much. But I saw the flicker of something behind his eyes. Regret. Maybe disappointment. Maybe the realization that this weekend had been a door cracked open, and now I was closing it again. He nodded once. Okay. He opened the door, paused, and looked back one last time. If you ever want to talk about anything, he said, you know where I am. And then he left. I stood in the hallway for a long time after the door shut. The apartment felt smaller somehow, or maybe just quieter. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat down on the floor, back against the wall, and let myself feel the complicated ache of wanting someone you can't trust yet. That night, I found his toothbrush in the bathroom, still in the holder. He forgot it, or maybe he didn't. For the next 2 days, I tried to convince myself that it was just a weekend, just a visit. Just some old emotions stirred up by proximity and habit and unresolved crap we never dealt with properly. But I was lying to myself, because every time I walked past the bathroom and saw his toothbrush still sitting there, something in me paused. And I didn't move it. I didn't throw it out. I didn't even touch it. It was like part of me was waiting to see if he'd come back for it. He didn't text. I didn't either. But I thought about it. Constantly. Thought about that kiss in the kitchen, his voice in the dark, the way he looked at me like I was still home. Wednesday night, I found myself sitting on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, his contact open. Typing. Deleting. Typing again. Eventually, I just sent, "You left your toothbrush." It was lame. Pointless. An excuse. He responded within a minute. Maybe on purpose. I stared at that message, unsure how to interpret it. So I sent, "Bold move." His reply was hoping it might get me a second weekend. I didn't answer right away, but that was the moment I realized something. This thing between us wasn't over. Not really. Not if he was still reaching. Not if I was still answering. I waited until Friday to text him again. "If you're free tomorrow, I still owe you brunch. That Sunday plan kind of fell apart." "I'm free," he replied almost instantly. "Is that an invitation?" "It's whatever you want it to be," I wrote. The next morning, he showed up at my door again. No bag this time, just him. Casual, calm, same slight smile. We didn't hug. We didn't kiss. We just went to brunch, like two people testing the air between them. But it was different this time. Less nostalgia. More awareness. We talked about work, about how he hated his new boss, how my project deadline got pushed, about movies, old friends, the usual filler. But it wasn't empty. It was careful, intentional. He walked me back to the apartment after, and when we got to my door, I turned to him. "I'm still not sure what this is," I said, "or what it should be." "I'm not either," he replied, "but I know I want to figure it out, with you." I studied him for a long time. "Okay," I said, "one weekend at a time." He smiled. And then, finally, we kissed again. Not like before, not tentative, not goodbye. This one felt like a beginning. One weekend turned into 2, then 3. He didn't move back in, not officially. We didn't slap labels on anything or make dramatic declarations. We just kept showing up. Brunch turned into late-night takeout. One movie turned into sleepovers. The guest room stayed empty. It was slow. Careful. I'd catch myself watching him while he folded laundry or scrolled through his phone, and I'd wonder how we ever got so far from this, from what felt easy, natural, real. But we also didn't pretend like it was perfect now. The second weekend, we argued. Something small. Me forgetting to respond to a message. Him over-explaining a story like I wasn't in the room. But we handled it differently this time. No slammed doors. No silent treatment. Just, "Hey, that bothered me." And, "Okay, I hear you." I'd forgotten what that sounded like. One night we were lying on the couch, half asleep, some documentary playing in the background. His arm was draped over me, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with mine. I was on the edge of sleep when he whispered, "I was scared, that I couldn't be the version of myself you needed." I blinked into the dark. "I know," I said. I was scared I didn't know how to ask for that version either. His arm tightened slightly around me. "But I'm not scared now," he said. Neither was I. We didn't jump back into old routines. I kept my independence. He kept his place. We didn't post anything or tell our friends for weeks. It was just ours. Quiet, steady, intentional. One weekend at a time became a new kind of rhythm. It wasn't the kind of story with a big romantic ending. There wasn't some grand speech in the rain or a ring on the table over brunch. It was just us, two people who broke once, maybe even broke each other a little, finding out what it means to rebuild something instead of replace it. Letting him stay that weekend? It was a mistake, but maybe it was the kind I needed to make to see what was still there, what was still possible, what hadn't been lost, just waiting to be found again.